Telschow. I'm an actor based in Florida, and I'm absolutely thrilled to work with Keith here. And I absolutely support 100% what he's doing, his mission, the videos. I really love what he's done for the community.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Keith Andrew, and welcome to the last 10 episodes of Season 12. That is right, it is episode 1190. We're 10 episodes away. After today, we are 9 episodes away from our goal of reaching 200. But right now, this is Season 12, number 90. Well, here's a great guest. He already introduced himself in the beginning of the show. First subject we're going to talk about is icebreakers. So let's start off with the basics. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is John Telschow. I'm a Florida-based actor, and right now I just came out of my directorial debut weekend for the Hallelujah Girls, based up in Citrus County. Over the last 2 years, I've gotten really active back in the acting community, and I've done over 20 plus stage productions, some 150 odd shows, and a few different little movie projects here and there.
Now, the first one I want to talk to you about is the project you just mentioned. What can you tell us about that?
So, The Hallelujah Girls is a story written by Jones Hope Wooten. It's a very Golden Girls kind of style comedy, and it takes place in Eden Falls, Georgia, after the death of Vonda Joyce, a very close personal friend of the cast. Sugar Lee, Mavis, Nita, and Carlene, and Crystal, of course, as well. And through the show, we watch them throughout a year span between Act 1 and Act 2 of them taking charge with their lives and giving a second chance at what they want for their dreams and trying to make those dreams come true.
No, that's really absolutely. And as we're talking, there's a picture of it on the screen. You also sent me a second picture. What can you tell us about that one?
So that one is called The Shape of Things. And a week from today, I will be loading in that set at the Valerie Theater in Inverness. And I'm taking the lead role of Adam in that one. Now, with The Shape of Things, we follow the story of Adam, who is a college student who meets Evelyn, an art major. And he falls in love with her. And it's the story of how, in that semester, how far are you willing to go for love? Like, what would you be willing to change? Um, it's only a four-person cast, two strong leads and two strong supporting cast, and it's a really, what's what I want to use here, powerful story in that. I actually have the honor of playing the role of Adam, which originally was played in the 2000 and 2003 movie adaptation where Paul Rudd actually played that role.
And you mentioned a four-person lead. You know, if you look at TV shows, you look at one of my favorite shows, Suits.
Absolutely.
Before they ran into the freaking ground. But Suits was the one show that. Well, let me explain in two ways. Then we can go to the next subject. When you watch something, you want something that hooks you at the moment. You want to feel like you're invested, not just say, okay, I can, piss away a half hour. When you mean invested, like, how can I benefit from watching something? So when I watch Suits, I was like, you know what? I wanted to be a professional actor. Obviously, I can't act my way out of a wet paper bag, but I'm like, okay, well, how can I get in the entertainment world in a different point of view? And this is how one of the reasons I came up with my talk show. But the reason I mentioned Suits, you have Mike Ross, you have Harvey, Lewis, and Jessica. And of course, there's a couple of other ones too. But
Oh, no,
they
absolutely.
they have the big four that they mainly focus on. So, do you guys feel if each person has their own stories, it isn't so overwhelming because they all intertwine with each other?
Absolutely, that's part of the process too. Is like when we've been doing the rehearsals for the shape of things, we've taken all 10 scenes, broken them down at every moment of rehearsal. Very in the early stages, we did one scene per rehearsal, and we went over it 2 or 3 times. The first time was just the cold read. The second time we inflected a lot of changes to it, and the third time we did it with the blocking. And a lot of that too is also putting in the backstories of these characters, who they were before we got to the page, what's happening in between it, and keeping that in mind as we go through so we can really nail the emotional changes that all the characters are going through in that.
Let me ask you this. We have top 15 questions, and so they're all very short. But the things about these questions is they're really hard-hitted. So I don't want you to give short answers. When you answer them, I want it to come from the heart. I want people to feel it that say, okay, the reason people are like, hey, can I have the questions beforehand? Well, if I give you the questions beforehand, it's I really need to find a better word to use instead of using premeditated. But whatever, I like using the word. But
Yeah,
you know what I mean? If I give you the questions
scripted.
beforehand, it's scripted. Thank you. It's scripted. But if I ask you a question, like for an example, what attracted you to begin your acting career? I want you to just take the first, what was it, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and
Yep.
let it sink in and then say, here, this is my reason.
So for me, I always loved the idea of acting because for me, there was so much I want to do with my life, and I couldn't really finalize myself onto one certain thing. And at some point, I thought, if I act, I can literally do everything at that point. I could be an astronaut, I could be a doctor, I could do anything. And it was not until after I went through my divorce that I was able to get back into acting. And when I finally did come back into acting in 2021, I had my first role and my first lead role ever at that point. And from that point forward, that show was Will You Still Love Me in the Morning? And I performed that show driving an hour and a half through traffic 3 times a week to do the rehearsals because it meant that much to me.
You have to do things that you're passionate about. Never do anything half-assed. There's never, well, as the guy I interviewed yesterday, the guy said, he's a big Breaking Bad fan. Walter, there's no half measures. You're either gonna do it or you don't do it at all. You can't half-ass it.
Exactly. Do it right.
So let me ask you, with everything that you accomplish, what is the biggest change you want to make in your acting career?
I want to do more filmed projects for the next 2 years for sure. I'm very active with my local theater groups and everything too, where I live. Right now, at this moment, I'm currently in 5 different productions because I'm a madman and I cannot say no. I'm directing the Hallelujah Girls. I'm starring in The Shape of Things. I'm doing lights for one, an unknown role in another, and then I have Something's Afoot at the end of April.
I do
Um,
have, oh, go ahead. I'm
that
sorry.
and Something's Afoot is a musical murder mystery kind of thing, almost like Clue.
If you're interested, I've been playing with the idea, like, people are like, well, I, I don't know. A lot of people sound like assholes still when they say, "Well, if I do your show, can I get IMDb credit?" You can give yourself IMDb credit. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how to do that, and if I did, I wouldn't be paying for it. But I was thinking because I'm a big wrestling fan, obviously with the glasses you can see, and I was thinking recently I saw executive producer Paul Vivek, and I'm like, maybe I should start doing that when I do my interviews at the end of the show, have the credits show up. And then I was
Absolutely.
thinking, why not have people who I interviewed, like you for an example, would you be interested in directing an episode of my show? And in return, you can use that for credit. So by helping someone with disabilities, you're also saying I worked with someone with disabilities as well. So you're helping
Absolutely,
me. What do you think of the
absolutely.
idea?
It's a really good idea too. Having someone there to help direct the show, keep the questions flowing, and making sure you're really hitting the bullet points you want to have a good quality show. You absolutely need someone like an assistant, directorial, or like it's going back to stage lingo there, assistant stage manager or a stage manager per se to kind of keep us focused on where we're going with that.
Hey, I've been doing this for 12 and a half years. Obviously, it's like I consider it like a bowel movement. It's slowly building up to something. I don't
Yep.
want my brother likes to hit me over the head with this. And not actually. He's like, well, you've been doing this for how many number of years? Well, if it hasn't happened yet, it's never going to. But I would rather it take a long time and make a solid foundation than being an overnight sensation, having my 15 minutes of fame, because this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Exactly. And that's something that some people that were close to me for a long time, they used to say that stuff to me too. If it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to. But I learned after a long time that the people that kept saying those things were the people kind of blocking the doorway, keeping the window closed on me, so I couldn't pursue these things. And so now that I'm and have a new lease on life and everything too, I keep acting. I keep doing this. I keep coming back every week for rehearsal, and it just it literally keeps me going.
Hey, you help me, I help you. That's how it works. It's about the people you know.
Absolutely.
But let me ask you this, because it's funny we're on this subject. What is some of the best acting advice or advice in general that you have ever gotten?
That I've ever gotten. Let's think about that for a moment. Um, don't just recite the lines. I mean, memorizing your lines is great and all, but like you have to really find the nuances in them. Like, what are you supposed to be feeling as you're saying this? Who are you saying that to? Um, that's something I ran into on my final tech week for the Hallelujah Girls. I had one character that was just delivering a line, and she had no idea the context of it. And it wasn't until I said, no, 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 no. This line, you're saying that because of the absurdity of what this person's wearing. And it was a light bulb that goes off. Because where you go from like just memorizing your lines and reciting them to acting the emotions and really giving that performance and becoming who you're portraying, that's the difference between Hollywood and anything else.
I agree with you 100%. Sometimes because I can't, part of my disability, I can't read and write, but if I'm in a situation, I like to feel it out, not in that way, obviously. I like to feel it out and say, well, it has to be real, it has to be generate. It can't be, oh, he wrote this down and I'm just repeating it. You need to be in that spot and in that moment, take it all in and say the first thing that pops to mind because you have to feel it as in, well, yes, I know it is scripted, but if I were an example of a show, the show isn't scripted. You have to feel it in the moment. And it's like, you know what? I feel this strongly on how if we were doing something and I said, this is how it should be done, it's not, scripted as in, okay, he says, and next line, it's scripted. If it pops in your
Right.
head, it's more authentic and it's kind of like a wave. You know, it's one of those stop motion things where you don't want to stop. And let me ask you this in another way. Was there ever a time where you were doing an acting skit and you just stop and had a complete brain fart, and how did you overcome that?
Oh, it happens more often than you think. Like even tonight here, while we're working through one of our scenes for the shape of things, like this is the first time in a week at least that we have the whole cast here on hands because I've been in tech week. But like we're running through these lines and there's just that moment where I'm trying to stay off the page as much as I can to try and make sure it's all committed to that memory. And fortunately, the shape of things is very conversational. So it's just a matter of like trying to remember to get it in. And that's the beautiful thing about stage acting because it's always live. It's always one take. Every show is a little bit different from the next. But when you have a very talented group of volunteers like I do, they start to see where the other actors are starting to drop things and they prepare for that. A lot of times you'll have an actor opposite of you throw you a catch or find a way to get you through it as well. If you absolutely completely forget, that's the beautiful thing with live theater is that you have your co-stars to help you along the way.
No, absolutely. And let's go back to that stop motion is you never want to stop completely because then you look like a deer in the headlights. It's kind of like one of those yield signs. You got to slow up, absorb the moment, and then you're going to proceed. Because if you just like stop dead in your tracks, that's where reality kind of smacks you in the back of the head, saying, "What are you doing? You're already messed something up."
Yep. And I run into that every tech week when I'm running a performance myself. So the tech week is our final dress rehearsals. So make sure we have the show fully on deck. We're getting ready to opening night. And it's in those moments where I really tend to shine because I tend to hyperfixate on parts. That's how I've been going from one show to the next as much as I have. I will hyperfixate on one show, and as soon as that final curtain call is done, it's out the window. Totally forget about it, and I'm on to the next one. But that final week of rehearsals, that's where when I start having those moments of those brain farts, that's the moments I need to really hyperfixate on so that I don't have those moments on stage.
So the next one I want to ask you is social media. With you being in the acting world, do you give thanks to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or is there any other websites you would recommend to me or viewers, saying if it wasn't for these websites, it really wouldn't have helped progress my career in the direction I wanted it to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Facebook has been like the star player for me on that. That's anywhere that I see a casting call or a need for a role or anything like that. Um, matter of fact, that's how we ended up getting connected there too. When you shot me that message, inviting me on the show, um, which was absolutely wonderful. The only thing that popped in my head is like, I'm just curious, how did you find me?
That's a good question. I think it was under suggested or I was part of a group. I don't
Gotcha.
remember.
Yeah, filming in Florida probably then. So
Right.
yeah, you definitely found me through there. Okay.
The one
And that's a
th
great way to connect organically to directors, producers, interviews, hosts, and everyone else.
the one thing I don't like about it is people are like saying, "Yeah, we're interested, we're interested, we're interested," and then when after a couple of days go by, I'm like, "What the hell happened?" I got
Yeah,
like
yeah,
20 people saying they're interested. I got like maybe 5 people back. I'm like, anyway,
yeah. I can understand that. And just working through all of that.
I got one
Very
person.
challenging.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's definitely very challenging. I'm just acknowledging that.
I actually made a comment and I said, I will, my goal is to reach a number 1,000 episodes. I would like to do, because I was counting it out, because it took me 10 years to do 1,000 episodes. Now, if I interview one or two people for the next 12 months, I can get to my goal a lot faster. And I was looking at the site and I said, I want to interview every single person, every single member. And someone said to me, You're bullshitting us. You want to interview every single member on this group? Yeah. If you're in the entertainment world, you're an actor, you're a writer, you're a producer. I want you on the show. And then they're like, okay. And other people are like, there's no way you're gonna interview every single person who's a part of this group. Why not?
And that's the wrong attitude that people have about it. I mean, it's that holding on to those old beliefs that prevent you from moving forward and everything. You gotta, you really have to change your mindset on a lot of things. And that's where, like, a lot of times with my co-stars and my actors or anything like that, when I see them struggling, they're saying, I'm never going to remember this. I'm never going to do this. And I just take that deep breath. I'm like, no, 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 no. Take a deep breath. You will have this by opening night. You need to start saying that. Because if you don't, whatever you say manifests into what actually happens. And that's that power of positive thinking that keeps us moving forward. It keeps us growing and becoming just better versions of ourselves.
Well, let me ask you this because you are on my show, obviously.
Yeah.
Have you worked with people with disabilities? And if people with disabilities want to be on your show, how would they go about contacting you?
So every audition is an open auditioning call. So anytime, whether it's my show or someone else's, which this being my directorial debut, it's going to be another year before I direct again. But it's just a matter of coming to the auditions, giving it everything you got, and fitting that role, really. And it's just, I'm trying to find the words, and they're escaping me right now myself. Um, because for myself, I actually view myself as someone with undiagnosed ADHD, which when I do the research on it and I think about my life and the way things have panned out for me, it makes a lot of sense. But I I don't look at it as a disability or anything like that. I try to turn what most people look at as a con in my life into a positive. So anytime I feel down about any place of where I am or anything like that, I try to find the brighter side of that. Like, yes, I don't have this. However, it allows me to do these things now too.
I also came over that stigma too because I fall under the spectrum. I can't read, I can't write, I never went to college. But for 12 and a half years, look at what I have accomplished. But the one thing people like to hit me over the head with, and I don't know if they do it to be funny or they just say it to get a reaction. It's like, okay, you're a talk show host with disabled people. Do you only interview disabled people? And I'm like, well, that's the stigma right there. Just because I say I'm a talk show host with disabilities doesn't mean it's only for people with disabilities. You know, I interview everyone. If you're in the entertainment world, actor, writer, producer, wrestler, whatever, that's okay. But just the stigma of just saying, well, I would like to be doing this, but you said, and people just take the little screw and turn it, and they just, you give someone an itch and you're gonna take your arm for a mile. It's kind of like, why can't you just take an opportunity when you can benefit from it? Why do you have to freaking dissect it, and then after you're done with it, you're kind of like, what's the point? You ever been in that situation?
Where I'll give someone an inch and they tend to take a mile more often than you know. Because I get people that ask me to help out with this or that, and I'll agree to it and show up, and then they pile a little bit more on and a little bit more, and before I know it, time goes by and I'm not where I wanted to be.
Hey, let's have a
But
thought. Oh, go ahead.
that's the old me. I'm in a different space. I know how to set my boundaries on things like that.
Hey, let's have fun with this. And we're gonna play rapid fire. Did you
Sure.
ever, with because you are an actor and you also directing, was there ever a time or a situation where you would talk to your castmates and say, "Hey, we're gonna do this project," and you're telling them you're in charge? but somehow they spin it around and they tell you what to do. I give me an example. I came across one guy who said, "Hey, I would like to be on your show." Absolutely. I don't know, tomorrow, blah, blah, blah time. And it's like, no, I'm going to tell you the time and I'm going to send you the link. And so I'm going to direct that over to you. So when you're acting with your other actors or you're trying to direct, do
Yep.
people try to take advantage of your kindness?
Oh, absolutely. Because like there's was points here where I was making concessions for some actors on a few issues where they had problems with like some of the costumes. And then there was just other moments there where um someone's really pushing a soundtrack for the production, and I said no, I don't want those or anything like that, and they still went ahead and put those kind of things in that. So I just took it upon myself to open up ShowQ, which is a wonderful program that is used for a lot of like theater productions. It's very user friendly to run your sound cues and your video cues. And I just edited it myself, made sure it was exactly what I wanted. And at that point, like I'm the director, this is what it's going to be.
Exactly. I mean, like, it's like hypothetically, was there ever a time where you would tell, like Fox News or CNN would say, "Hey, John, we would like to have you on the show, and you're coming at this time," and you turn around and say, "No, this is how it's got to be. I want it tomorrow at this time." It's kind of like, what?
Yes, there was a few times where like my actors were struggling with like their entrance lines and everything too, and like when I wanted them on the stage, and like when I came up to them and told them what it was, I've had them like snap back at me. I'm like, okay, this is like the third time it's changed, and I go, just take a deep breath. It's just the same note I gave you guys last night. At this cue, that's when you guys will walk out. And they're like, "Oh, yeah, you're right." And then they calm down and they see that like it wasn't a different cue; it was the same one I gave them the night prior.
I don't know. Part of my disability is I don't like being told what to do.
Absolutely, it can be a very frustrating thing.
But I do have a couple questions for you off the air. But wrapping up, I want you to be brutally honest. I have no cards on my sleeve. When I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what made you say yes, and how do you feel now?
So what made me say yes is and once you shot me that message, because when you sent me the friend request, I honestly thought you were one of the castmates from one of the shows I just joined. So it was like very serendipitous that you sent that friend request in that moment. So when I saw the message come through and I read it and I looked at see how you found me, like what areas we had in common, I saw one or two mutual friends and like the groups that we have in common through Facebook. And at that point, I was like, okay. And then like you explained the situation, the interview process, the disabilities, and how you were just really looking for that support as well. And like um for me, supporting any entertainment industry, anyone trying to get into that is something that I'm very passionate about. So I feel great that I've done this interview, and I can't wait to see where this goes next.
And how do you feel now, and would you recommend it to other people?
I definitely would recommend it. You are very pleasant to with, and the whole process has been pretty seamless overall.
Okay.
I do want to circle back though that you had asked about like other websites I would recommend anyone looking to get into the industry. I myself am on Backstage.com. I'm also on IMDb. I've been referred to do Actors Access, but I haven't signed up for that yet because I can barely keep up with my Backstage as it is. So I've heard a lot of good things about Actors Access specifically.
No, me too. The biggest thing is I'm unemployed, and you have to pay for most of those sites. But eventually, knock on wood, things will work out. But I do have a couple questions for you off the air. This interview will be shared on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Oh, there's the top four: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and whatever the hell the last one is. But it will be shared everywhere. Our goal is to reach 500 to 1,000 views. If you're watching, definitely leave a comment. I would love to interact with you. Our guests would like to interact with you. And make sure the biggest thing is by watching, liking, and subscribing, you're supporting upcoming people like my friend here, and you're supporting a talk show host with disabilities. So until we meet again, thank you for being a guest on my talk show. It was a real honor and privilege, and I will talk to you soon. Until we meet again, I catch you later. Thank you.
Honor and privilege.
Supporting me, and my message is all that matters.